If I can. I know it took us a long time. You shouldn't stick 3 engineers trying to fix a doggone computer. That's a real problem in itself. But I have with me one of my partners in crime that has an announcement to make sure that you do visit our booth downstairs and take it away.
Yeah, booth 410 is the Polycom booth. We hope everybody will stop by. We are doing a drawing for 2 VVX 1500 multimedia phones. So you could be checking those into your luggage and taking them with you. I brought them in this morning. So please stop by the booth, register, just drop a business card in the fishbowl there, and sometime Thursday afternoon, I guess, we'll draw for the 2 VVX 1500s. We got a MSRP of, I think for the SIP version, right? So
right.
$1,099 each. So you could take a couple of those back with you and play with them on your open source product and get them to work and hopefully sell some to your customers or sell some within your own organization. So stop by booth 410. Thanks.
That's what we really appreciate is you sell them to your customers or your clients. What we're going to talk about today is securing your IP phones on your Asterisk platform. And as we know, one of the biggest problems that we have today is trying to work within the bounds. We all know what we perceive is our big problem in the outside network and the external network. Now, we all know that there's hackers out there and things like that. But what we really have come to realize, a lot of that stuff actually comes on the inside. You've got on your internal network things like maybe disgruntled employees and things of that nature. So that's one of the areas that we need to concentrate on. On the external portion of the network, as long as your customers, which is the big problem, let's face it, when you sell a product to a customer, and just like me, you try and bypass things. I was trying to use the wrong software program to set my resolution and set multiple screens here, and by golly, it didn't work. Now, did it? And what we see with a lot of our customers is that they'll go ahead and turn firewalls off just temporarily, and then they promise they'll go ahead and bring it back up later. So we're seeing problems with that. They need to go ahead and restrict IP address strings and things like that, and in turn what they do is they'll leave a whole string open in their network, and they're just asking for problems. I'm sure that a lot of you are familiar with the Polycom phone. One of the biggest reasons people like it is because it has an extra IP interface on it. So you can go with a PoE switch to the telephone itself, but you have this other port that is available to hook a PC to. Well, guess what? That becomes your one of the biggest problem areas if you don't secure the whole thing on a different VPN or subnet or something like that. So keep that in mind. Having a solid firewall turned on, that's the key word, turned on, just so it will pass only the ports that you want, is another thing that we have to keep in mind of here. We have another version of the same VVX telephone that we were giving away downstairs, and it has H323. So there are a number of different ports that you will have to open up, and to allow, first of all, H323 on into the network, as well as your SIP, the 5060 port number. So keep that part in mind. But do restrict the IP addresses that you use to a known limit. So people can't come in and try and grab another IP address once they get into your network, and the next thing you know, they have compromised your entire network. On the inside of the internal portion of the network, we have, as I mentioned, the Ethernet port on the PC. This has become such a problem with the federal government. They actually have us completely either glue a plug in, cut off a cable so the RJ45 goes in, and then they'll super glue that. Some way to completely disable that port. They don't want to have any way to stick another device into that network. But you also would go ahead and use SRTP signaling to help lock down and enforce the security on that network as a means. MAC address filtering is another thing that you should consider. I know these are things that your customers will not like too much because of the extra administrative costs that they will incur. But it is something that you need to be aware of, because of a lot of the times you're going to have more in the way of different applications that are drawn on to these products in the network. As far as the server configurations, one of the things that we have found is to make sure that you use the latest builds for security purposes. Once it's compromised, that's when they'll come out with a different version of it. Do the same thing with the Linux distributions. I'm not saying anything since we are a direct partner of Microsoft, but this is one way around some of the security issues. Microsoft is a hot button right now to try and hack into, so that causes anything that operates on that platform a hot button. Another way to do that is to change those default passwords in all of the devices that you have out there. And that does include the telephone. Now, we do a lot of wireless. That's where I actually came from, was the SpectraLink side. And one of the biggest problems we have is that everybody was leaving the default password in there, and they're well known. If you've ever used one of the devices, you know that you know what that password is. So we do ask that your customers do change that. And for the same reason that you would want to, it's because they're going to be calling you and pointing their fingers at you, the person that sold the equipment to them, that is causing their problems. Also, just like we found out downstairs, we talked to one of our other partners, and one of the other things that is necessary here is to actually do logging of calls and connections that are being made. That's where you will actually find a lot of the connections that all of a sudden do appear on your network. There's another one here, the closing of the unused ports. I know that when we first set up a lot of these VoIP phones, people will go ahead and open up everything from 5060 through 5070, and most of the time those ports would be unused. So just use the ports that you do need to open them up. Continuing on with that, don't configure SIP name with the same extension number up there. These are some of the what we would consider simple ideas for it, but you'd be surprised how many times. Well, we're actually doing it downstairs with our gear right now for the demo, but in real life you want to try and keep your customers from it. FIPS compliance is another one, 140-2, and you want to be working out to AES, the advanced encryption schema, and use at least 128-bit password and things of that nature. RSA also is something that you should go ahead and privatize the encryption on your network that would also be a help in this. Let's see. This reject failed authentication request. This is usually after somebody has tried to gain access into the network. They'll go ahead and find out, whenever the phone is reset, it's a vulnerable point on our phones, as it is with most other client devices out there. It's in the clear as that phone is doing its first boot up. So you're going to be able to see what the initial password is. Now, we are JITC certified, but that was one of the problems we had on our earlier versions of software. So once again, that's another reason that we do request that you as partners do go in and load the most recent version of firmware on those telephone devices. And got one last one here. And I guess I got a few more here. Do the countermeasures capability here is, there's no better way to find out what other people are doing to gain access into your network than for you to test it. I know that was one of the things they had us do on the wireless, was to take the security class, and that brought a lot of things to light as far as different things to look for. That's how we found out how easy it was to break into a number of different things. Something that we thought was a really hard passcode, with all the shift and characters, we found out that, by golly, you can go ahead and crack that sucker in about 5 seconds with a good dictionary program. One of the current what is it? SIP Vicious is part of a play on Sid Vicious's name from the Sex Pistols. This is one program. These are different programs that you might draw some attention to yourself, but you might want to download some of these things and take a look at it. Things like different SMAC programs where you can go ahead and change your MAC address to different devices out there. These are all just different areas that would help build this. As far as the countermeasures, the author a lot of times will, as far as this SB crash, have already written a countermeasure program to the hacking software that they had. So one of the easiest ways to do the countermeasures is to actually go up online and look for some of these problems. Now, I know that a lot of your customers, just for the sheer cost, are going to run soft phones on their PCs. And, we don't necessarily condone that, because that PC is a very vulnerable device. Once they get in, you can go ahead and carry